Hello, everybody. It's Pineapple here, and so today I wanted to talk about the recent Forbidden and Limited list that came out last night. The implications both for the list as well as what it could mean going forward, as well as the missed opportunities that I think are really felt with a ban list that occurred when the format did not feel super horrible or oppressive, as well as when the format is really changing with the release of these two new decks in Malice and Ryzeal, and how that was a missed opportunity and the things that we could have done and changed and, obviously been better about, and just some things off the top of my head that they could have done a little bit better. But we're going to talk about the implications, as well as just the things that I think could have gone differently, what I like, what I didn't like, what I would have liked to see instead, etc., etc. So let's just talk about the unlimits. First up, we're going to talk about the Dragon Wars. There's nothing that needs to be said. These cards are, funny. They're funny, cool cards, I think, for the local level. They're iconic. I'm glad to see them back at 3, but, for competitive metagame relevance, none of them really have any, strength or, real power. And that's okay, but good to see them come off the list. Good to see that get cleaned up. The big one for the Unlimits is Dino Wrestler Pankratops. It's Pankratops. I think that seeing a lot of control decks want to default to being Pank control, I don't think that's enough anymore, but I do think that, we will see this card inside decks more and more because he is at 3. Happy to see this card come back. It's super fun to play with. I think it's a fair one-for-one trade. Like, you special it, you beat over something, you pop another card. It outs Floodgates really effectively. Just a card that I am happy to see just in the format because it is, a fair card that really punishes dumb, stupid stuff. So happy to see that back. Lunalite Tiger, this is a YouTube combo card. The difference between whatever it was at and 3, is because it wasn't forbidden, is negligible at best. But, it's whatever. Rescue Ace Airlifter is a good unhit. I don't know why it was still limited. Rescue Ace wasn't doing anything. It was not going to do anything because it has to play, 4 Garnets and cards that you don't want to draw going second and all that good stuff. But, good on Airlifter for being back. And then they killed Rescue Ace later in this list, but we'll talk about that later. Colossus, this card should have, been put back on the list, in my opinion. Just not a fun card. I don't really care how relevant it is, but congratulations to all the other Thunder Dragon players. I guess now you can play 3. Congratulations. Same thing with Ib. Ib is fine to exist, though, unlike Colossus, but, the difference between 1 and 3 is absolutely negligible. And opening of the Spirit Gates with the hit that they make later to Yubel, this is completely fine. I'm fine with the consistency of Yubel because it gets absolutely obliterated by cards like Fuwalos, as well as just, limiting the ceiling of the deck as well. So totally fine with all the unlimits. Obviously, I would have liked to see some more. This was a ban list that when you don't really need to change a lot in the format or can't change a lot in the format, I think that you are presented with an opportunity to then, make more unlimits to sort of change up what people are playing. For semi-limits, oh no, Cyberjar's at 2. No one was playing this card. This card could have gone straight to 3. I don't know why we're worried about it. Flip cards that they don't matter. Danger Jackalope and Danger Tsuchinoko, I think, are, fine to come back. The danger cards randomness aspect means that, they aren't really going to get played. I guess, 3-axis decks get better, but it's whatever. Ava, the difference between 1 and 2 is, non-existence because, of course, when you Ava, it's for Herald and Drytron and all that good stuff, and as a result, those extra negates don't matter too much because, Ava is a once per turn. Perform a Pal Monkey Board. Again, Pendulum Soup is not doing anything in a world in which Electromite doesn't exist, which is another missed opportunity by this ban list. But let's talk about the limits because these are the big ones. Chandra and Sangan Kaiman. Always happy to see Tenpai hits. This is just a deck that I think we as a community have all collectively agreed just does not express skill and is not interesting to play with or against. It's such a snore-inducing and boring deck, and I think the hate that it gets is completely justified. If you enjoy competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, you should not enjoy the existence of Tenpai, so always happy to see that the consistency be toned down and just the frustrating aspects of this deck be, eliminated. So good on them for limiting them, but, the people who, I guess, really love Tenpai, congratulations, you can still technically play the deck. It's just way less consistent, and that's what you deserve, because decks that just say, show me your hand, I'll show you mine, I win, you lose, or you win and I lose, are just not interesting or good for the game. Phantom of Yubel, this was always a card that I think everyone just kind of agreed, this, you should only be able to do this once. And, if you can recycle it, then you can do it again. But, you shouldn't be allowed to play, 2 or 3 copies of. So I'm happy to see it go to 1. Eventually, there will be a point in which you can, unlimit this card, but that point is not today. And Zodiac Barrage, this being the only unhit from the Forbidden list, is such a silly, silly thing. Like, this is such a nothing burger of a card. If you unhit Dryden, like, maybe that's something worth talking about. But Barrage in a world where Dryden doesn't exist is such a pathetic excuse of a unhit. I really can't express enough how this was an opportunity to bring back some silly, ridiculous stuff. Like, you could have brought back some crazy stuff, and we're going to talk about all the things that I think you could have brought back and changes I would have made here momentarily. But bringing back just Barrage is such a sad excuse to fill out space. I can't stress enough just how disappointing I am by this being the only unhit. But let's talk about the bans. Gimmick Puppet of Nightmare and Jalgun are obviously hits to Sanctifier specifically. But the thing is that Branded is not a deck that is anywhere to be found on the face of the earth, anywhere. But, like, happy to see them go. But, like, if you did this last list, we'd be cheering. But it's, like, 2 months too late. But when, that deck was kind of even around, but it's not around anymore. And it hasn't been around for a while. So, like, you're late to the party, but, like, huzzah, I guess. Original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye. If you had done this last list, we'd all be cheering, but Snake Eye is dead. It got one top cut slot at YCS Anaheim. Like, and now you're just killing all the variants, which would play Diabellstar to search OSS to summon a level 1 fire, like something like a Fire King or Rescue Ace, and you just have eliminated them from existence by removing like 7 cards from their deck for consistency purposes. So this is just such a strange hit to Snake Eye. A deck that was already dead by disconnecting Diabellstar from level 1 fires. Just a very bizarre hit, in my opinion, when Flambridge was a card that people had been clamoring to be banned for so long. So let's move on to, of course, everyone's favorite, the things that I would change about it, because that's the fun part of this. So earlier in the video, I mentioned like this was such a missed opportunity to limit, unlimit, change things about the list, and really use it to shake up like stale parts of the format and clean up the ban list. So let's talk about what I meant by that. I think a really big missed opportunity was to ban Dimension Shifter. We're in a format where Shifter like we didn't need a ban list. So if you're gonna make a ban list, make things that are just like quality of life things. Like Shifter is such a card that everyone despises. If you enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh, you don't enjoy Dimension Shifter. That's how I see it. So like you are presented with an opportunity where you kind of need to fill out space on your ban list, and I think banning Shifter was such a freebie, and to fumble that is so ridiculously silly and stupid. I don't understand why you would fail to do this. Same thing with Arch Nemesis Protoss. No one enjoys playing against Arch Nemesis Protoss. If I sit down across the table and someone Protosses me, I am not having a good time. We are not playing a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Unless they call the wrong attribute. We play a non-game. And again, it was an opportunity to get cards like this out of the game when you don't have to ban like archetypal like extenders and starters and all that stuff. You had an opportunity to remove this card. I don't know why you brought it back. No one asked for it to be back. No one wanted it back, but you brought it back for some reason. Cards like Barrier and Dimension Ground are just cards that people don't like, and they're in side decks right now with like stuff like the Thrust package, and especially in a format where Ryziel is the deck to beat. You had an opportunity to just ban this card, and now we don't have to side and like play with Barrier. Like you could have just banned Barrier, and everyone would have been happy. Nobody would have complained. I'm a lab player, and I would have been fine if you just banned Dimension Barrier. But it's still around for some reason. Why? I don't understand. But same thing with Dimension Ground, not to the extent that D-Barrier, but like obviously like decks just need their graveyard, and having a card that just says "fuck your graveyard" just shouldn't exist. That's my opinion. And Flambridge, as much as I love Flambridge, like from a conceptual design perspective, I think he's such a cool piece of removal, and he summons things back, and he turns them into interrupts, and I think that's really cool, and he's follow-up and all this stuff, and I love Snake Eyes Flambridge. And if Snake Eyes becomes like a funny control deck that's centered around like Temple Flambridge control, I think that'd be so fucking based, but obviously it won't. But like Flambridge is a card that like if you wanted to ban it and like only hit Snake Eye, this is the card you ban because it is an everything card. And it's such an easy thing. And if you don't ban OSS, then decks like Rescue Ace get to continue to exist. Things like Fire King just change their combo lines around and stuff. And I think this was such an easy hit to make. We're going to talk about Fiendsmith because I think Fiendsmith is a engine as a individual deck to trade well with hand traps is completely fine, but there is one card that I think is it's just a frustrating card. Like, nobody likes when Wave King High Caesar hits the field. He is just so obnoxious and frustrating, and if you just banned him, I think everyone would be happier. Like don't get me wrong, like, making Desiree is great, but like, Caesar is just, he's so annoying. And if you don't want to hit Caesar, like, you could have banned Close Heaven as much as I enjoy it, because like, one of the problems with Fiendsmith is like, you get hand trapped twice, and then you stick two bodies together and you make Moon, and then you go to like Fiendsmith stuff. Now, obviously, in a world where Ryzeo like can make stuff like a Exciton Knight, that isn't as relevant and stuff, and there are other extra deck light fiends that exist. So I don't think you necessarily need to ban Moon, but like, if you really wanted to limit the extra deck accessibility of Closed Moon, of like the Fiendsmith cards by banning Closed Moon, I think that would have been acceptable. Another like hit they could have made is like, you can limit Bonfire. Like, you can do that. Like, Ryzeo utilizing Bonfire, like, you can limit Bonfire. Like, that would have been completely okay. Like, I understand that players might have been frustrated because of how expensive this card was on release, but like, it would have been completely fine, I think, like, for the health of the game, if you just limited Bonfire and were like, okay, well, like, Ryzeo's everywhere. We're going to limit Bonfire. But the big thing that I think for missed opportunities, floodgates, and just generic cards that they could have gotten rid of, cards like Pot of Prosperity are just really overtuned and really powerful, and you could have gotten rid of it, this list, like, just to fill out space if you wanted to. Like, you could have just been like, we banned Prosp, guys, like, that stupid consistency card is gone. They could have banned, like, all these Floodgates, Goes in Rivalry, Tikaboo, Anti-Spelled Skill Drain. I think Deck Lockdown was just a card that should have been on this list regardless, because now it's, like, the best, like, going first, like, staple Floodgate thing. So, like, if you wanted to ban, like, Deck Lockdown or any of these, like, just to fill out space, like, people would have cheered for that. They would have just been happy about that. But the biggest opportunity, in my opinion, was the opportunity in which was missed to bring back cool and interesting cards. Like, what is Fishborg Blaster still doing on the list? Like, do you think people are even going to play Fishborg Blaster if you unban this card? Like, maybe people played in Mermail, but, like, that's the only deck I can think of. Like, what if you want, like, people to, like, experiment with this in Mermail instead of, like, the Goaty cards, for example? Like, there are opportunities here that I think were just missed. Like, what is Glow Up Bulb doing, like, taking up a slot on the ban list? Like, are you really going to look me in the eye and be like, yes, Glow Up Bulb is too strong in 2024 going into 2025? It's not. It's not. You could have unlimited Shervara. Like, there's no reason for this card to be on the list anymore. Like, do you think Unchained is going to, like really do things? Is that what you're worried about? I'm not. I don't think anyone is really concerned about Unchained, because that deck is hard, man. It's a hard deck to play. Like, if you wanted to make unhits to Zoo instead of doing stuff like Barrage, like, what if we got Barrage and then you put Rat to 2 and we could, like, do stuff with Rat? Like, that would be so interesting, right? We could have, like, if you wanted to get really crazy with it, like, what if we unbanned Heavy Storm? Like, I'm saying this as a back row player. Like, what if you were just like, hey, guys, like, Heavy Storm was in the latest, like, rarity collection. Well, what if you played it? Like, you could have done something like that. Like, it's an iconic card that people would have played with. What if you put Gold Sark to, like, 2? Like, what if we put Gold Sark to 2, right? Like, oh, Malice is a deck now. Like, well, now you have 2 Gold Sark. Like, go experiment with that, right? Like, there are so many interesting things that you could have done, and you just chose not to. Like, we unbanned Grass last format. It did nothing, and instead of, like, encouraging people to play it more by putting it to more copies, we didn't do anything with it. Like, encourage people to play with these cards that you unhit and then reprint it. Like Naturia Sacred Tree. Why is this still on the list? Like, seriously, why? Like, put it to 3. Like, maybe people want to experiment with Naturia. If you want to get really wild, I have some ridiculous stuff. Like, what if we put Master Plan to 1? Like, what if we just did something stupid like that? Like, can Spiral still compete in a world in which, like, a bunch of generic extra deck stuff is gone? Like, maybe it can, maybe it can't. What if we fucking unbanned Block Dragon? Like, just as, like, a jump scare? Like, what? Like, why is Masterpiece? Like, what if we put Masterpiece to 1 and Diagram to, like, 3 or something? Like, what if we just did that? Like, do you think people are going to lose, like, the format would, like, implode if we did that? Like, there are just so many crazy things that you could have done that I haven't even talked about. Like, if we go just to the links, like, what if we could unban Mermaid. If you really, like, want to argue against Mermaid, fine, we can ban Ibly. Like, whatever. No one's losing sleep over banning of Ibly. But Like, we already have the Fiendsmith cards. Like, why can't we have Mermaid back? Like, why can't we have Meowmoo? Like, there are just so many things that you could do to change up, like, the format. Like, why is Electromite still banned, I guess? Like, I don't like Pendulum Soup, like, decks or anything. But, like, you could have, like, just thrown, like, people a bone and, like, unbanned something interesting like Electromite. Summon Sork has an errata in the OCG and in Master Duel. Like, where's that errata and stuff for the TCG? Like, come on, guys. Like, in a world in which we stick two monsters together after getting hand trapped twice and then make Closed Moon into Requiem, is Verte really a problem? Like, what if you just unbanned Verte and wanted people to experiment with something like Dragoon instead of, like, the Fiendsmith cards, right? Or, like, DPE instead of the Fiendsmith cards. Like, surely that was something you could do to change up the format. If you're going to unhit, like, zoo things, like, why not do Dryden? We have Detonator. Like, give us back Dryden. Like, you could unban Invoker. Like, there's so many things that you could have done to just even fill out space and, like, make things happen on this ban list, and you just failed to do so when you generated so much excitement for a list that people did not expect. And I think that's such a abject failure by the ban list team, that you were ahead of the curve. You put out a ban list ahead of time. We weren't begging for it, and you, instead of using this opportunity of being ahead of the curve to address key concerns like floodgates and unfun cards that the community has been complaining about for years, you used it to do basic what amounts to nothing because the format is shifting. It's just we're two steps forward, one step back is how I see it, and that's really, really frustrating and disappointing to see. But again, it's progress. It's something, but the contents of this ban list could have been better. But I hope they continue to, do stuff like this, like present the ban list like this, because that was such a great change. But hopefully that their contents of the ban list catch up in quality to the production of the ban list. I hope you guys did enjoy this breakdown. I know I'm, being really negative and stuff, but if you did enjoy this video, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.